Okay, so to get started on your accounts, double click your shortcut to open your Sage 50 and we're going to add new company. And then you click restore data from the backup and you have to browse to the location of your backup file. You'll see the data set there and open. And you click next. When you're happy with your folders, you can click restore. So when the restore is done, you will see a login screen for the company, so the logon name, and again it will be given in your question is manager and ATI. So one of the first requirements in your question is to adjust the company name so that it reads super followed by your exam number. So if you go to settings and company preferences, put in your password there, ATI, and OK. And we're changing this to super and exam number, SUPER, and you'll have your exam number. And just click OK on that, and you'll see it changed up at the top of the screen. Okay, so in your Sage 50 accounts, usually one of the first things you have to do is your Salaries Journal. So it's the same in this supercomputer question. So get a piece of paper and write out your debits and credits. So on the debit side, your expenses, you will always have to use the 7002 Director's Salaries account. So that figure can be got by checking your question and check who are the directors. So Steve, Gates and Grace are directors in this case, the first two employees there. So you add up their gross and we get 13,125 there. So then you go to your nominal codes again and check for the salaries expense. So 7003 there, you'll always have an entry on that. Now our salaries are the other employees, so I add those up here and I get 17,095 and 83 cents. However, of that there's 403.84 to be taken out for sick pay that we don't pay. So we're reducing one of the salaries by that. So you just have to remember that from your question. So my entry for the salaries account is 16,691.99. Now that can be a tricky figure sometimes to calculate, or you might forget or not know which figure is for sick pay. So you can actually leave that till the very end and just get the balancing figure on your journal. So that's just a little trick if you find that piece difficult. You will always have an entry in 7006, the employer's PRSI 1827.77, and you'll see that there over here, PRSI, ER, the employer's PRSI contribution, and there's the figure there. You have the employer's pension 7007, and that figure is not a figure you can pick up cleanly from this report, so you'll have to check another report for that. So you'll actually see it on the control summary, ER's non-tax deductions 206.25. So you'll be filling that in there, 206.25 will go in there. And in this question we had redundancy, and that will go to 7008 nominal code, and the redundancy figure you'll know from your calculations anyhow, but it is non-taxable payment of 5,400 there, so that's an expense to the business as well, so we include that in our expenses. Now you might have other things in your question such as health insurance that the employer is paying, and that might go to another expense account. In this case we also have a reimbursed expense for postage or stamps there of 60, and you just pick up the relevant nominal code for that, in this case 7501. It could be a travel expense or some other code that you use depending on your question. The credit side is usually easier to fill, and if you're getting stuck, usually it's a good idea to fill out the credit side first. You'll always have the nominal code 2220 for the wages payable. And that figure is very simply here, the net payable, the total payable amount in your gross to net, 26090.14. Here it is here. You also have to pick up the P30, and you will get that again in your control summary on the first page. Revenue totals, that's your P30 liability to revenue, 10602.12. And finally, in this question we have pension, and for pension it's not just the pension that your employer is paying, but also the piece that the employee is contributing. So you have to add the two contributions together, so don't forget that. So in this question we will have the employer's contribution 20625, which is also our expense, and we have to add on to that then our employee's pension contribution, and you'll see that in the control summary on the second page, pension 41250. So we're putting those two together. So just to complete my note then, I've put in my employer's contribution to pension 206.25 there in the debit, and my P30 figure €10,602.12, and the pension total, both employee and employer's contribution, 618.75, and I can transfer that into a journal entry then in my accounts when I get started. Then the second piece is to post the Salaries Journal for July 2019 using the information you produced in section A. So we have gone through the details and where to find the figures. Don't forget that the nominal codes can be found in your nominal code section, and you'll see there your wages, director salary 7001, staff salary 7003. You can pick up the codes there. Those are the codes you'll be posting to. And on the other hand, your liabilities, your payroll, your P30 for example, and your wages are under liabilities. And you simply go then to nominal codes and do a journal entry, and we're going to put in a reference, and we'll just call it salaries, and the posting date for this then is on the 31st of July, so it'll be the end of the month that you're dealing with, and you put in your various details from your note. So 7002, director's remuneration, and the debit is 13125, and then you tab down along, is the easiest to use on these screens. 7003 is the staff salaries. So just a quick details there, and tab out then, and again this is a debit entry, the 16691.99, and so on. So when you have entered your debits and credits, your totals will equal, and if you're happy that all your entries are correct and again your date is correct, you click save, and that's your journal entry done, and you can close out of that screen. Part 4 now asks us to post the invoice shown from Plaster Consols Limited. So again, you just go to suppliers and batch invoice, and the account comes up, just make sure that's correct, and it's purchases, and the date of the transaction is the first entry on the 10th of the 7th. So you just put in your date and tab along. The reference is the invoice number, and it's important that you put this in just for tracing and for correcting your question, and tab along. The nominal code is default at 5,000, that's fine, and keep tabbing until you get to details, and purchases is fine there. You take the net amount Then from the invoice itself, so that's the amount excluding VAT was 630. The tax is T1 and that's corrected 144.90. Just cross check with your docket, and there's no amount paid or anything on this, so that's all that we need on that, and you click save. Okay, so part 5 asked me to record the entry for a sterling draft that I'm going to make towards Powerful Power Supplies Limited. So first of all, you've got to go to Powerful Power Supplies and check the balance, and you'll see it there, 5219.22. or double click if you want to double check. You can double click in, and under activities you will see the current balance there as well. You need that figure to do the calculation. Okay, so to figure out the foreign exchange loss or gain, you don't really need the sterling amount, you just need the amount owed to the supplier, because that's the amount being paid off. So the value to be paid is €5,219.22, that's what's owed, and we know that the draft amount is €5,210.75. Of that, there's a bank charge included of $7.50, so if we take that out, then we know that we're actually paying 5203.25 for the goods. So to pay this amount, it's costing us 5,203.25. So therefore, it's costing us less than what we actually owe, so there's a gain in this case. So if this figure was higher, then there would be a loss, but in this case there's a gain. So to process that through our accounts, we're going to do a batch supplier invoice for the bank fee of $7.50 to our supplier, so we're going to charge them $7.50. We're going to do a credit note for the foreign exchange gain of $15.97, so they're getting credit for that. And then we do the supplier payment as normal, and we allocate it against the various invoices and credit note, and of course we have to allocate that credit note as well. Okay, so I now want to do the draft for the foreign exchange. So I'm going to go to suppliers, and I need to do a batch invoice, and here I'm going to charge the customer for the bank fee. So just put in the date, and first. So you can tab along there, the reference number, you do want to put in a reference for it, and I'm just going to put in that it's draft, and the nominal code for the bank fee I'm using 7901, so that will do there, bank charges, and tab along and details that it's a draft fee. So the amount is €7.50. There is no tax on this, so it's got to be a zero rate, and that's it. So that's the $7.50, and save. And I can close out of that, and I also want to do a batch credit because we have made a currency gain. I want to put through a credit for that. So again, just make sure you pick up the correct supplier and the date of the transaction, and tab along, and there isn't a credit note number, just that it's the draft. The nominal code for a gain is 7902, so that's currency charges, and I'm just going to tab along to details there, and it's FX gain, foreign exchange gain, and the net amount of the gain was $15.97, so I have to have a little working done on that, and again it's a T0, there's no tax on it, so just make sure that your total is correct, and save and close. Okay, so now I want to record the payment of that draft. So I go to Banks and Payments and Supplier Payment, and I'll just pick up the Powerful Power Supplies account as the payee and the date of the transaction. And just pop that in there again, and it was a draft as opposed to a check. So the overall amount of that was 5210.75. That's what I paid, so that goes in there. And just to allocate it, I'm just going to allocate the bank fee and the foreign exchange first of all, and that way I won't have any errors when I allocate the rest of it, so that should balance out. So if you allocate this first of all, then it will tell you that your payment is exceeding the amount of the draft or check. So just do the other two first and then allocate the invoice itself last. Your supplier balance should go to 0 in this instance, and you should have analysed the full amount of the draft. And if you're happy with that, then you click Save, and that's done. And you can close out of that screen. So the next part of the question asks me to process a payment by one of the directors to a supplier. So to process that, we need to process it through the director's loan account, which is a liability account. So I just have it up there. It's actually a long-term liability, and you see it there, 2301. So we want to use that. And what we have to do is then go to our suppliers, and we're going to do a batch credit. So in here we want to allocate it to the correct account first of all. So this was to motherboard suppliers. So motherboard suppliers are there. And click OK. And just make sure that account is correct. The date of the transaction is the 15th of the 7th. And tab across. And it's not a credit note, it's a director's loan, and the nominal code is 2301. And so the director's loan is being used to pay this. So the details is director's loan will do fine, and the amount of the payment is for invoice 7005. So I've checked that, and you can check it yourself with the supplier. It's 1291.50, and tab across, and it's 20, and you click Save on that. So once you have recorded the director's loan, you then have to go to the supplier and allocate that credit. So if you go to the bank module and go to Payments and Supplier Payment, and again just select the correct supplier here. So again, motherboards, suppliers, and that will bring up the various transactions. So the date of this, again, just pop in the same date and tab plus. You don't enter any amount, there's nothing actually being paid here, it's just to allocate one item against the other. So we're going to clear the credit note against the original invoice, and you click Save. Close on that, and that's the allocation done. So there are three aspects to the lease that you're asked to do. First of all, you have to set up the purchase of the equipment and the creation of the lease account. So you'll be setting up a new liability account for that, and again I'll show you where to get the nominal codes. You also have to set up the expense for the interest on the lease and add that to the lease each month. So that will be a new recurring journal item, and again we need a new expense account for that interest. And finally we need to show the repayment of the lease, so we'll be debiting the lease account and crediting our bank with the payment of that lease. So just in terms of figures, first of all, you're given the purchase price of the equipment, and then in terms of the interest, the workings on that, you're given the amount of interest for the duration of the lease was 4,680. That's over 5 years, and at 12 months in the year it means that we have a repayment there of €78 per month, and that's just to calculate that one. And just to show you then on the repayment itself, so just bring it back here, our total will be equal to the 28920 plus the interest, which was the 4680, so that's coming to 33,000, and again that's over 5 years and it's per month, so it will work out at 560 per month. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and set up those new accounts that I need for my lease. So I need an interest account, an interest expense, so that would normally go in to bank charges. So I'm going to set it up as 7909 would be the next one there. So I just click on new or wizard. I'm going to take the wizard in this case, and it's lease interest expense, and the type of account you can see there, if I just move that over, you can see that it is in under overheads, and the subcategory there is bank charges and interest. So I'm going to scroll down a bit slower on that. There we go. Oh, bank charges and interest, so it will detect that the next code in that category is 7909, so that's a good place to put it. And click next. There's no opening balance, and create, and that's that done. And the other one that I want to create then is the lease account itself. So again, just to show you where that would lie, it would normally be in under creditors and anywhere in there in the 210 category. So I'm going to put it in after the 2102, so it'll be 2103. So if I take the wizard, and this is the lease liability account, and again the type will be, it's important that you get these right, so this will be current liability, and we'll put it into credit or short term is fine. So 2103 is actually coming up there as the next nominal code, and that's okay. Click next, and there's no other opening balance, and create. So those are the two holders for those set up. And next I'm going to do my journal entry. So the first part of the lease is to set up the purchase of the equipment itself. So lease will do as reference, and the date of the transaction was the 1st of the 7th 9. And the debit, I'm going to debit, as I said, the asset, which is plant and machinery in this case, and I can tab along, and I'm going to enter the details, and there's no tax on this transaction. So on the debit side we're entering the amount of 28,920, and on the credit then we're going to credit the new account 2103 that we just set up, and that's the lease liability, and again it's a zero tax, and this is the credit entry, so creating that liability 28920 there. So again, our debits and credits should always add up in our journal entry, and click Save. And close that screen, and now we're going to do the recurring journal entry. So if I go to bank accounts, and in here I want to do recurring items, and we want to add an. We always want to do in this screen is transaction type. So this is a journal debit first of all, and the journal debit is 7909, the lease interest. So we're going to debit the expense of lease interest, and I just put in lease there as the transaction reference, and this is recurring. So some little bit of detail there on what the item is, and again it's every month, so I'm going to switch to month, and the start date is the 1st of July. So just to watch your transaction dates, always double check your question. And the total required quoting, so again that's just your 5 years by 12, so 60 there. And if I tab along then to the net amount, so the amount of the lease interest is 78, so that calculation done, and there's no tax on it, zero tax is fine, so any of the zero tax there is fine, and click OK. And now we're going to add a journal credit, and this time the lease interest to the lease account. So it's to the lease liability 2103, so just put that up there. So the reference is lease, and it's the lease interest. Some detail, and again it's once every month, and the start date, and 60 postings there. The amount is to match, so 78 again there, and zero tax, and that's okay. So I have my debits and credits done there on that. And we can also do the third part of the lease, and that's for the repayment. So I can go in here, and this is a bank payment, so this is for paying back the lease. So we're paying it from our current account, and we're paying the 2103, we're paying off the lease. So just pick that up, so 2103 there. And again, so it's the lease, and it's the repayment of the lease. So again, every month, and there will be 60 postings, and the start date again is the 1st of the 72019. And the amount, so the amount of this is 560 that we calculated earlier. There's no tax on that, so make sure they go to T0, and that's it. Then you click. So this screen is actually doing the debits and credits both in the one screen, and click OK. And when you have that done, you can go ahead and post the recurring items for 1 month, for the month of July. So you can click process and click yes. So again, just put in the correct date, so it's for the end of July, and if you tab on that, it will bring up the 3 items that are listed and that can be posted for that month. So it's just 1 entry on each. So if we click post on that, what happens is it goes to 1 posting made and there's 59 remaining, and that's, you can click close on that, and that is your lease. Okay, so the next part of my question asks me to record and allocate the following customer receipt. So I got to go to the customers module and find the customer, which is Benchmark Computerware Company, and the invoice that I'm looking for is, I'm just going to double click in there to get the details. The invoice I'm looking for is 100931. So if I go to activity there for that customer, and I should be able to see the invoice 931. So just to note, the amount there is 4.83, and that's important because I'm going to make a payment against that, but there's a discount. So if I go to customer receipt and again just pick up the customer that I'm dealing with, so again it's the Benchmark, and the date of the transaction is the date of 72019, and the amount that I've received is 1620. So just record that there, and the reference, again you can put in the lodgement number there, 100027, and I have to receipt it against the correct invoice, which is the first one there, the 931, and I will put the amount, so 1620 goes in there, and I'm told that the balance or the difference is 8. So the difference there is just 4.83. I can record that there, and if I click save, that's that transaction. Okay, so the next part of my question is reconciliation. So for this, again, you have to have your bank reconciliation, your statement I should say, open in front of you, and you're going to tick off the items that match with what's on your records. So if you go to the bank module and just pick up the current account and click reconcile, and statement reference, so this is for 2019, and the ending balance, that's the final balance in the statement here. So you have to enter that amount, and I'm just going to type that in there. So it's 1260498, and the statement date is the end of July. So just put in the relevant date there and click OK. So that brings you in then to your reconciliation, and you start at the top and just tick off the matching items. So the first item is a sales receipt, 3571. So that's okay, we have that. And we have another sales receipt of 570250. So just double clicking reconciles them as well at the same time. We have a check for 811305, a payment of lease for 560, sales receipt of 500487, and the VAT. We have the 210 for insurance. We have a sales receipt for 3784.96, and we have a 10291 and you just keep going until you have them done. I'm going to skip down. I don't seem to have those two, so I'm going to go to purchases maybe. So I have a purchase payment of 93, I don't have that. The 840, I have the 840, so I can take that off. And the rent of 2000, I have that. And the other sales receipts, 6, I don't seem to have either any of those, so that's okay. These are items that I entered at the end of July, so they haven't processed through my bank account yet. That's fine, I just leave those sitting there. And on the other hand, I now have to go to the statement here and identify the items that are missing and put them through. So if I want, I can save my progress and come back to the reconciliation when I have the corrections done. So this will save the transactions I've matched so far, and the next time I come back in, I can continue to match any remaining items that I've entered in the meantime. So I'm just going to click OK. That brings me out, and that allows me then to enter the missing items. So the missing items from my records that are on the bank statement, the first item there is the P30 payment. So if I go to bank accounts and payments and I want a bank payment, and the bank account is coming out of the current account, the date of the transaction, just take the date from the statement, so it's the 15th, and this is a bank payment, so just put bank there, and the nominal code that I'm paying this to is the P30 account that I used earlier in the in the Salaries Journal, so it was 2210, so just get that number there. So again, you might have to check that before you go in, and the details is it's just the P30 payment. And the net amount of that payment then is 9306.19. Just get the correct amount, and there's no tax, so it's a T0 there. Make sure there's no tax on bank payments. And you can continue with other bank payments, so there is another one here, the Q2 bank fees. I can enter that here as well, and again it's 1,200, and it's on the 15th of the 7th, so the same date, and it's just a bank payment. And the code that I'm paying bank fees on, and again the bank fees we used earlier, you can use the same code. I'm just going to get that code here, 7901. And again, just a quick reference on it is fees, and the amount on it is 38.45. T0, no tax on any of these. And there's also a payment on the staff salaries. Now I'm just skipping the bank transfer because I can do that differently. So I'm just going to do the staff salaries that are missing as well there. So again, they were on the 25th of the 7th, 2019, and it's our bank payment, and the amount there is, the code for staff salaries is 2220 net wages, that's it. And just keep the details short. And again, this is a net amount of 17,895.99, or 59 I should say. So just double check the figures, and that's okay. So I can save those Sorry, just to update the tax there, and that's those correct. So you can put those three together, they're all bank payments, and click save. It's jumping around. I'm going to close that. And the next item I want to do then is a bank transfer. So the bank transfer is basically a debit and credit entry, so just to make sure that you're putting the money into the correct account. So this is our current account, major bank, so the 1,200 major bank is receiving, debiting the 20,000 there, and the 1,210 is being credited, just to make sure you get that right, and click save. So when you have the missing items entered, you can go back into the bank module and reconcile, and it'll prompt you to use the saved reconciliation that you've done so far, and you can simply click through the reconciled items. Now I see the P30 payment there because I put them in on the one screen on the same date. They've put the P30 and the bank fees together, but that's okay, I know what they are, I can reconcile. So double click. Bank transfer of 20,000 is okay, and the wages are okay, and that's it. Then the rest are unreconciled, you leave those there, and that should mean then that I have a difference of 0, which is correct, and my ending balance is correct, so I'm happy with that. I have matched the two, so I can click reconcile. Now before I hit reconcile, I have to generate the report. So again, just to watch the question, that report has to be generated before you hit reconcile on that screen. So I'm just going to put this into my folder here for returning to my examiner, and bank rec and save. And once you've saved, you can print it at any time or later in the exam. So you can close that out. And I don't want to close it before I've exported, so just wait for a moment on that. So I think that's done now, yep. And I have the report, I can now hit reconcile. And then I can close out of that screen and it's gone. That's done, that's great. Okay, so the next part of the question asked me to provide for depreciation for the period based on the fixed assets. So you go into your fixed assets and check out the plant and machinery accumulated depreciation account and just get the account code. You're going to be debiting the expense account 8001 and you're going to be crediting the accumulated depreciation account 0021. So you might just want to jot down those codes and the amount, the existing amount that's already there. You don't need to recalculate those, just check out what's already been posted for plant and machinery, and you'll post another one. Office equipment, you're going to debit the expense account 8004 and credit 0031, the accumulated, and again the existing figure is there. The same with fixtures and fittings and motor vehicles, and the only one you actually have to calculate is the leased asset. So the leased asset was 28,920, that's what we capitalised. You're dividing that over 5 years and dividing by 12 gives you 482 per month. And again, you can just post that to the same accounts for the plant and machinery and debit the expense account 8001 and credit the accumulated depreciation 0021. Okay, so just to show you that on the nominal code screen, the fixed assets there, the plant and machinery for example, the accumulated depreciation account 0021, if I double click into that, I will see the monthly postings for 798.75 and I'll be repeating that for July, and that's the credit entry. And if I go to my overheads and depreciation, the debit entry on the expense account for plant and machinery there 8001, if I go in there I'll see a corresponding debit entry there. So those are the accounts. You don't need to reinvent those figures, the only one you have to calculate is the lease, and then you can post them all together. So to post these, I'm in nominal codes. I'm going to go to journal entry and put in my journal for depreciation. Again, this is all end of month. Okay, just want to get the date right there. And so I start off with my codes. So the details, do put in some details, but keep it very brief, and all of these are exclusive of that, so there's no VAT obviously on these. So that's my debit entry, and the credit of that is the accumulated depreciation account. So it's important to get the debits and credits right here. And then I'm on to the office equipment, 8004, and the amount there 450, and the credit entry 0031, and credit there 450. The furniture and fixtures 8002, and the amount there 312.50. So as I said, I didn't calculate any of these, I just looked them up from the existing accounts. And finally then the motor vehicles 8003, and that's 702.40, and tag along then to 0051. So that's my asset account. Just make sure I get the depreciation account there, and quick details on this is credit entry 2.4, and then finally the only one that I have to calculate, and I have it there, is lease. So I'm just posting this again through the same accounts, so it's 8001, and the debit of 482. So the lease depreciation there 482, a credit on the accumulated depreciation account. So again, in the journal entry, just make sure your debits and credits match, and a final check on your figures, and that's it. Click save on that, and that's your depreciation done. So my next piece, I'm asked to record the stock take items. So for that I just need to check the account codes and nominal codes. So my fixed asset account is 1001, and that is the closing stock figure 87859.55, so I'll be adjusting for that. And the other two accounts that I need are in the under total purchases there. The stock is opening stock 5,200 and 5,201. Those two nominal codes will be needed. So I do a journal entry, and again this is all at the end of the month. Just get the date right there. So first of all I'm going to go to the 5200, and that's my opening stock account, and just to record there that we have a new opening stock, and it is what I'm closing with at the end of June, becomes my opening for July. So I want to debit that with the 87,859, and I'm clearing the 1001, the fixed asset. So I take it out of there. And I'm going to show my new opening stock then in the 1001. And that was a stock count of 84,353, and that has to go then to the closing stock. So the same figure there, 84,353. Just to make sure I have the correct figures, and my debits should equal my credits, and that's your adjustment for the closing stock. So when you have a supplier that's also a customer, it's possible to offset one balance or part of the balance against another. So you just click on the supplier in this case and click Contra Entries. Now while it brings up the bank account, it doesn't actually process through the bank account. So you just come down and pick out your sales ledger. So again, it's Faster Consols Limited. So just click there. And on the opposite we have Faster Consols as well as a purchase ledger. And if we take the purchase invoice that we've just processed, and you can offset it against the earlier sales invoice, and click OK. It'll ask you, do you want to continue? And while it's outside the financial year, the current financial year, it will process them for the dates of the invoices. So you can say yes to continue, and it also tells you then the sales balance does not match the purchase invoice. Do you want to make a part contract with the lowest amount? So we'll take the lowest amount, which is the 774.90 here, and it'll offset it against that first invoice that I've selected, and I'll say yes on that. So that's a Contra Entry. Alright, so point number 13 asks me to accrue an expense for electricity, and to do that I'll do a journal entry. So just to pick up the accounts, sorry, I just want to close that there. I will be debiting the electricity expense account 7,200 is the nominal code there, so I'll debit the expense and I'll create the accrual, and the accrual account can be found there under current liabilities, accruals 2109. So just to note those nominal codes, and to get the amount then I'm told that if I go to suppliers and check under Electric Ireland, I'm to use the June figure. So if I go to activity there, I will see the purchase invoice for the last month. So just click on it, and it's not the total amount, I'm told that it's the net amount. So if I view that transaction, I'll see that the net amount is 1477. So that's the amount I need to process. So I'll close on that and close here, and I'm just going to do a journal entry then for that. So for nominal codes, journal entry, and again just print a reference, and it's the end of the month, and your codes again 7,200 is the electricity expense, and there's no tax, and it's just to record the accrual of 1,477. So that's a debit entry, and we're going to credit the 2109, which is the accruals, and that's a credit entry 1477 there, and that's my debits and credits, and I have the correct accounts, and I'm happy that everything's okay there, and save. Okay, so the final transaction I have to do is a suspense correction here. So if I just take a look at the suspense in the nominal codes, it's got a debit balance there of 500, and that 500 needs to be cleared out of that, so I'll be crediting that 9998 account, and that 500 should have correctly gone to petty cash. So I'm going to debit petty cash, so I need to do a journal entry for that. So journal entry, and it's correction of an error if you want to give it a reference, and the correct date, it's the end of July when I'm correcting this. So again, I'm just going to debit the petty cash, and I'm going to correct that error there, and there's no tax on this, it's 500 was the amount, and I'm going to clear the suspense account, so I'm going to credit the 9998, and that's a credit entry there, and that is my journal entry for that. So I'm going to click save, and that's done. I'm at the final stages of my question, and now it's looking for an audit trail. So on the reports, I go to transactions on the left and audit trail report. And again, you want to do a preview of the file and just watch if it wants it on landscape or portrait. Portrait, it's fine, and it has to be a detailed. So just check your question for exactly what's required. So detailed audit trail by posting number. So we're going to run the report. And the transaction numbers is what we're looking for. It has to be between 261 to the end. So just put in transaction number 261 here and let it run out to the end and click OK. And that generates the report from transaction 261 to the end. And again, I'll just scroll down there and I'll see my last transaction, which was the correction of the error. And once I'm happy with that, then I can save it and print it. So make sure you save it first of all, and you can print it at any stage then. So I'm going to save it to the same place, same location where I have all my solution in here for accounts. So it's my audit trail, and I'm going to click save on that, and that means then I can print at any time. So all my reports will go together there in my return to the examiner. I'm also asked for a print list detailing recurring journals. So the recurring journals are in the bank module, and if you go to recurring items, it brings up your list, and you can print the list or send it to Excel if you want to save it first, and that will allow you to save it and print it at a later stage. So if you go directly to print, make sure you check with your exam invigilator that you're allowed to print at that particular time. So there's my Excel report, and I can save that then as well to my exam folder. Another report I'm asked for here is the age creditors analysis report detailed. So again, if I go to my suppliers and go to reports, and if I take the age creditors and just scroll down a little bit there, and you will see an age creditors analysis detailed option. And again, if you preview that, it allows you to save it. So sorry, the transaction dates we want from all the transactions as at 31st of July. So I'm just going to put in the date there, 31st of 7th 2019. Just put that in the correct format there and click OK. And again, once you have that report, then you can export it, which is saving it, and it'll start defaulting back to your exam folder anyway, and you can save it there as a PDF, and that again means you can print it at any stage. Okay. Now, of course, the final step in the exam is to back up your files. So to do that, you go to File and Backup, and yes to continue. And it's just to back up the data files and make sure that you're happy with the file name, and it puts the date and time stamp on it. The location is really important, that you know where the backup is going to. It should be going to your exam folder. You can browse to the location if you can't see it there, and just click OK and check your data. You can check your data if you want, but generally you won't have any errors in it. I'm not going to do so on this occasion. There shouldn't be any problems with it, so just do the backup and that's okay. So at the end of the exam, it's important to check that in your exam folder, which will have your exam number on it, that you have your correct files. So in my accounts folder, I have my final backup there, and I can see the file, that's perfect. And I have my reports, so I have my audit trail, my bank reconciliation, my recurring journals, and the age creditors reports that I was asked for, and that's everything. I'm happy that that's good for the examiner. I don't actually need that other backup that I done halfway through, but you can leave it there. It's not going to do any harm.